Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. Hope you guys have all had a great week and are looking forward to the weekend when Newcastle take on West Ham tomorrow night, 5:30 kickoff at St James's Park. It is on Sky. We are on TV again. We're on TV for most games at the moment, and I will be at the game tomorrow night. So I'll have all of the usual pre-match chat, post-match chat. I'll have the vlog. So if you're not subscribed, be sure to do so. Hit that big red button. It is free for you guys to do so. It helps the channel, and it just means you guys are notified of any future videos. And I'm getting really close to 40,000 subscribers. And I do have a 40,000 subscriber special planned. I never got around to doing one for my 30,000 subscribers, but I can promise you the 40,000 is a good one. It's taken quite a bit of work, but I cannot wait to hopefully get it done and show you guys, in the hope that we do hit 40,000 subscribers. But today we are here to talk about Newcastle versus West Ham. We've already had a great week. The win against Southampton on Tuesday. The atmosphere in St James's Park was incredible, and we are hoping to have a little bit of that tomorrow night as well. In this video we will talk about Newcastle United. We'll talk a little bit about West Ham. Eddie Howe has done his press conference where he talks about the fact that Bruno will not be available for this game. What we could potentially do without Bruno in terms of what players come into the team. Is Maxi available? Is Isak available after getting called off early in the last game? And could we see Anthony Gordon? We'll go through all of that and the lineups in this video, and at the end I'll give my prediction as well. So, let's start off with West Ham. The visiting team tomorrow night at St James's Park. West Ham, a side who, you know, for me are underachieving this season. I think they were a team who really wanted to be, you know, pushing up in those places for European football this season. And generally speaking, considering the amount of money they spent in that summer window, there was a lot of high hopes for West Ham, but despite the fact that they haven't had the greatest season so far, they still have some very good players. Funnily enough, Eddie Howe actually talked about Lucas Paqueta in his interview today. Won't be playing against Bruno, because as I say, Bruno won't be available for this game, but players like Declan Rice, someone that Newcastle are being linked with. I think if he goes anywhere, it'll likely be Chelsea. It's talks that he could well go to Arsenal. But yeah, I like Rice. I think he's a very good player. I think he holds the midfield very well, and he won't be easy to get around. But Newcastle are on fine form. We will be buzzing from the Wembley game. Eddie Howe actually did say that for him, it was a mind change. That game's done. West Ham is next. But he said for the players, they probably had a few beers after the game, probably a little bit of a late night, and then having to kind of pick themselves up what was undoubtedly a very emotional night. I think it was emotional for the fans to see us get to Wembley, and you could see the passion on the face of Sean Longstaff as he put the ball into the back of the net twice. You had Dan Burn with his fantastic bit about getting his suit measured for Wembley. You know, I think it's one of them games that really took a lot out of the players, and Eddie Howe now has that job to settle them down and get them back in and get them psyched up for this game tomorrow night. It's thought that really this week they've not done a huge amount of training. They've kind of had a little bit here and there. Obviously 2 games in a week, you don't want to overdo it. But hopefully we'll be back with a bounce tomorrow. And what do we want to see from Newcastle? The usual. Well, something that was unusual was Nick Pope conceding a goal the other night. So hopefully we don't see that again. But generally speaking, keep it tight at the back and press high. But one thing that we will miss is Bruno. And Eddie Howe was asked about that. Eddie Howe said in his press conference earlier on today that Bruno will be a huge miss. The good thing, well, despite the fact that he got a red card and he's about to miss 3 games, if there is a good thing, it's that because we have 3 games between now and the final, Bruno's return will be the final at Wembley. So, yes, it's not good news that he's missing this game or the next 2, but at least we're going to have our star man back in time for Wembley. Eddie Howe was also asked about the availability of Maxi Isak, even Elliot Anderson got a mention as to whether he could potentially replace Bruno on the pitch for this game, which I thought was probably very Eddie Howe to kind of mix it up a little bit. You know, we know what Eddie Howe's like. He did not, spoiler alert, he did not come out and go, we're going to do this, 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 and this. He came out and just kind of said, we could do this, or we could do that, keeping David Moyes guessing of what our plans are. So to hear him talk about Elliot Anderson was interesting, unless he looked to maybe drop Longstaff into a more deeper role to allow Anderson play in the centre of midfield. That's a possibility. But I think, and we'll come on to the lineups in a moment, I think for a lot of us, we would imagine Joey will drop back from the left-hand side, and then it's who's going to be over there. Well, Eddie Howe was asked about St. Maximin and his availability for this game. Eddie Howe actually discussed the fact that he's very aware of the fact that St. Max is not a player that necessarily does the dirty work in terms of defending. We know that he's, I think, liked playing Joe Linton on that left-hand side more than anything because he just gives them that cover, that security. And although Joe Linton isn't the most attacking, flair, forward-going player, he still has put the ball in the net a few times, and he just gives a lot. Eddie Howe said that he's well aware that St. Max isn't that kind of player, but it's not to say that he wants to be anything other than what he is. He wants to still have those type of players who can come on and can make a difference. Will he put his faith in him this Saturday? We'll talk about lineups in a moment. Could he put his faith in Anthony Gordon? He was asked about Gordon and Ashby, saying that both players are ready to go. Will he play them? Maybe. We'll talk about that as I say. But he did say they're ready to go. The only thing is, and I think this kind of hinted that maybe they might not play, is that because the team had a game on Tuesday, they haven't really had a full squad training session yet. They've trained individually to obviously get up to speed, start learning the Eddie Howe way. But I've got a sneaky feeling we will see Gordon tomorrow. And I think I would like to see him start as well. In terms of Isak, he was asked about his head injury. Eddie Howe said that he has a slight sign of concussion, which obviously isn't good, but then did his Eddie Howe thing and said he doesn't know whether he will be available or not. I think a lot of people were calling out to give Isak a go in the last game from the start because Callum Wilson has been a little bit out of form. Generally speaking, I thought Wilson did all right in the game on Tuesday. I think he does press, he does follow the ball. You'll note that when Maxi and Isak came on, we lost that a little bit. I don't think Isak was really, considering he was only on for, the end of the game, he could have just busted a gut and chased everything. Maybe he was conserving his energy a little bit so that if he did have something going forward, he was ready for it. Whereas, with Wilson, he will work hard the whole game. Now, in terms of the lineups, obviously let me know yours down below. This is what I have gone for. Pope and goal, Trippier, Botman, Shaw, Byrne. That will be the back line. It's done us well so far, so why change it? It'll obviously be interesting to see as this season goes on and as we start to have more games. As I say, 2 games in a week this week. That's something that we kind of have potential advantage over Manchester United going into Wembley, as I think they've got 9 games between now and Wembley, and we've only got 3. So that's quite handy for us. The big thing here is who's playing on the left and who's playing in the middle. I think Eddie Howe will go with Willock, Longstaff, Joe Linton. I think it's great to hear the conversation of Elliot Anderson because he's there, he's an option. It's good to know that, well, we didn't put him out on loan in January, did we? And we couldn't because of the fact that Shelvey was leaving. We've seen Bruno pick up a red. Really, even without Shelvey leaving, we could have done with a player in that position. But at the same time, if Anderson's not getting game time, he could have had, 15, 20 championship appearances under his belt right now, already this season. And instead, we haven't seen him. Elliot Anderson is good for the squad now because we need the manpower, we need the depth, but for him personally, and I would even go ahead to say for Newcastle in the future, for the Elliot Anderson we hope that he can be in 3 years' time, we'll be better off playing championship football every week. But we're not in that position. We couldn't let him go. We don't have the depth. But regardless, I've gone Joe Linton, Longstaff, Willock. Longstaff, is the man that quite often you will say is the player behind Bruno, Joe Linton and Willock. But tell you what, he did not play a good game in the week, and that was one of the big things. We all know Longstaff runs his heart out. He's a Geordie lad. And I mean, what better way for him to score 2 goals in front of the Gallowgate to send his club to a Wembley final? Yeah, big up Longstaff. Was very genuinely happy for him in that game. I think a lot of Newcastle fans understand the fact that he does so much more off the ball, his tracking, his tackling, his breaking up play. But then when he's shooting into row Z every week, it's quite a big target on your back to go, come on. And it was great to see him lift that 4-year curse without a goal and score 2 in one night. So well done, Longstaff. On the right-hand side, I have gone Almiron, and in the middle, I have gone Wilson. It's interesting because I do think had Isak not gone off with a slight concussion, I would have put him up front today. And it's nothing against Wilson because he's a great player, and often with Wilson, really, I was gonna say like Haaland. It's that kind of striker where you don't see them all game. Quite often, you don't really see them until they're putting it in the back of the net, and that's what Wilson has been so good at doing for us over the last few years. Since the World Cup, he has kind of fell off the boil a little bit, and I do praise Eddie Howe for sticking with him. I think Wilson has deserved that faith to keep getting played, to get his chance, to get his form back. We don't want to just chuck him in the on the bench and just say, all right, you want Wilson to be on form. You want Wilson and Isak to both be in form, play one or the other. So I can see why he's sticking with Wilson. But I think there comes a time when you've got a £60 million striker on the bench over there who is actually very, very good, and you should probably put him on the pitch. So I've stuck with Wilson for this one only because of what happened with the head injury. Otherwise, I would have had Isak in. And then out on the left-hand side, I've put Anthony Gordon in. I've done it. The thought for many will be Maxi. And if I'm totally on it, it's interesting though, because Eddie Howe, things change with the Bruno ban. But generally speaking, Eddie Howe doesn't play Maxi from the start. He preferred Joe Linton, and now he's got his man. He's got his £45 million man to come in. It would make more sense to play Maxi in that he's more up to speed on how the squad works, who's playing here, who's playing there. If I had to potentially be a little bit more down the line on this one, I would probably say that he starts Maxi, and maybe we can see some of Gordon later in the game. You've got to think, that's the thing, we've spent big money on Gordon, and yes, he does need some time with the squad in training to really get used to what we're doing before he's kind of chucked in the deep end. Like, it isn't Eddie Howe to really bring players in and then immediately play them. But we've had Maxi all season, and he's not been playing him. And now he's gone out and he's got the player that he himself said is a huge fan of ever since he made his debut for Everton. We've been monitoring him since the summer, and as much as maybe he doesn't want to chuck him in at the deep end, he knows what he'll get with Gordon. He knows he'll get that work rate. He'll get that Joe Linton work rate out on that left-hand side. He will come back. He will go forward. He will create a threat. Maxi isn't that player. And it depends how he sees this game going as well, because with this West Ham team, they're a good side, they've got good players, and it won't be an easy game. Does he want to play a Maxi who can try and create and move, or does he want to try and play something a little bit more solid, which I think is probably what Gordon is? You let me know your thoughts on the lineup down below. Once again, I think the big conversation is centre mid left-hand side, so you let me know who you would play out there, and if you would have Isak over Wilson as well. And then, in terms of a prediction, I'm going to go 2-0 Newcastle. I was going to say 1-0. I think it will be tough And obviously, depending who's playing, Wilson has been a little bit quiet up front, and it took two, Longstaff goals, who, as I say, hasn't scored in 4 years, so we haven't really got our shooting boots on at the moment. BRUNO, I would say, has gone a little bit quiet as well, but yeah, I was going to say 1-0, 2-0, hopefully we can get that clean sheet record up and running again. I suppose in the Premier League it's still going. But yes, let me know your predictions down below. I hope you guys have a great weekend. As I mentioned, if you haven't subscribed, hit the big red button. It is free, and I'll have loads of content tomorrow. And hopefully, I'll be cheering tomorrow night when Newcastle pick up 3 points. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.